Our mother died when I was less than 2 years old. Floyd was 8, Myrtle 5. Dad and we three moved in with Grandpa and Grandma Chumley. She was around 53, which I'm sure was an extra load that she did not need after her family was grown and gone. But our dad was always there and provided for us. He was a good dad who loved us. We were always told what a good mother we had, a good Christian woman. And later years, the people I knew that had known her always spoke the same of her. Guess that's when I asked my first why. Why were we not allowed that good home with loving parents? But this life is full of whys. Myrtle and Floyd grew up remembering her, things they used to do for her, picking up chips, pine cones, and so forth. They remember the night she died, the song she sang, her last song, "My Jesus, I love Thee." Those years my dad operated a lath mill close to the place. We kids were always cautioned to not go near the mill. They tell me the cat started that way one day. I said, "Come back here, kitty, or you'll get a spanking." Suppose of all the warnings of the danger, I felt the cat should be protected too. Grandma was a worrier, as we've all been when we have a family. Later, Dad got a different mill and done custom lumber sawing. We girls helped Grandma, taught to work. Floyd was always with Dad. He was the apple of Dad's eye. But we girls were loved no less. We lived in a big old log house, cold and not fancy, but a good home for 3 little motherless kids, and a dad who always loved us and provided for us. One morning he went to the mill, came back shortly, and said the mill had burned. Of course, that was devastating to him. That was his source of livelihood for us. I, the little girl I was, said, "Oh, good, now you won't get hurt." We had heard a lot of worry from Grandma about those mills, but in a short time he had his mill going again. Eventually he did get seriously hurt by it. A board caught up, came back over the saw, striking him in the head, extracting his eye, and much, much other damage. Many large and small slivers to be taken out. The doctor thought it was hopeless, but nevertheless went about his duties. But a long stay in the hospital and good doctors, he regained his eyesight and was perfectly all right. He married our villa when I was 10 years old. That accident happened when I was around 12. They were moved out by then. I was back and forth, happened to be with our villa the day that all happened. We comforted each other. I would stay until I got homesick. I had a problem with homesickness. One time I was crying. Our villa said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I want Grandma and Grandma." She could have called me a big baby, but she didn't. She was good and must have loved Dad, which she did, to take on all of us. She and we girls had our differences. Dad never interfered, left that for us to settle, and soon we forgot what upset us. Floyd got married at 19, Myrtle at 18. After the sawmill episode, Dad ventured into farming. We had rented the Granger place. Dad done a lot of moving. Never put down very deep roots, didn't want to stay one place very long. The first time I met Morris, he stopped in with this bullet-shaped race car, one that he had designed and made before I met him, and I must say, nicely done. He was decked out in leather jacket, cap, and goggles, which in time proved that was not his image at all. He was cute. He wanted to know the way to lead her. I directed him, thinking all the time that I'd like to know more of him. Later he told me he thought I was kind of cute too. Guess we both must have seen something we liked. I having no idea of where he came from. Well, that summer, Dad decided time to move again. He rented the place where Joe Strum lives. A different house then, not as good one. So help me, across the road is where that good-looking guy was working. Wasn't long before he stopped over. A romance soon started, which my dad approved of, so he stopped over real often. Worked on Dad's car, which he was real good at. Also done that work for others in the community. We were married February the 10th, 1926. Morris was 23. I was lacking 2 months, being 17. I suppose some said too young, but I knew true love and good character, which Morris had. That next January, 1927, Edwin was born, and in 12 years we had 6. We were poor folks in those Depression days. It was a struggle raising a large family. We ate a lot of wild game for meat, deer, sometimes illegal, but never wasted it. Canned what we couldn't eat, fresh. Raised a garden, picked lots of wild fruit, which there was an abundance of. Had milk, cream, chicken, eggs, all the things a farm produced. Some we were sparingly used because we needed the money it would bring in. But that was common knowledge those days. Young folks would frown on that life nowadays. Times have changed. Morris had lots of hard days on an artificial limb, but when it got too painful, he would revert back to crutches for a while. He done road work for the county with horses at 50 cents an hour, man and team. But those were acceptable wages at that time. After around 20 years into our marriage, he was hired to run the county road patrol at 85 cents an hour. Hired for 6 weeks, which lasted 30 years. Wages got a little better, but nothing compared to nowadays. A lot of things, or I must say most everything, that entails raising a family we have experienced. Many operations, 5 appendix, broken arms, broken leg, and didn't miss many of the more common ailments kids have, but all so trivial to losing Arlene at 20 years of age, leaving 2 babies. Time does repeat. We 3 were left without a mother or grandparents to raise. Morris's grandparents raised him. But when it strikes one's own family and heart, that's when you know firsthand how devastating it can be, and more whys to be asked. We always thought we would spend all our allotted years together, but God allowed an incurable disease to destroy Morris's mind. As it was coming and progressing, which I'm sure I recognized more than anyone else, I felt bitterness and betrayed, thinking, what is this just and loving God doing to us? My trust and faith was weakening. Then eventually, coming to the end of my God-given caretaking ability, pastor and friends knew as I knew myself there had to be a change. But I was informed that had to be my decision, which it was. The nursing home was the change, and close where he could have the care I was unable to give. Then I guess God felt he had not challenged my faith enough. 4 days after Morris entered the nursing home, Jimmy had a brain aneurysm. 5 weeks in the Duluth hospital, 1 surgery and another pending for 4 weeks, which was touch and go for him at any time. I had given up one life way too young in my way of thinking. Do I have to give another equally as precious? But God in his mercy spared him. During those 5 weeks, Edwin made 14 trips to Duluth, and me along. Was that an act of love from an uncle and son? Many things have happened in these years. Morris has been in the home I do not have an answer for. But I am a firm believer God allows things we question for some good reason beyond our comprehension. I hope someone else's faith has grown through it all as mine has. There's been many lonely hours and lots of tears, but everyone has crosses to bear, and this is mine. Please read the book in my collection, Hope for the Troubled Heart. Billy Graham makes it all so understanding. This is a poorly put together tape by a mother who always loved you, all and still do. Please forgive all my shortcomings. I was never perfect and am not perfect. But as Morris always said, there was only one perfect one, and we knew what was done to him. I am so thankful for the many years we had together, 63 plus, not counting the time he's been gone. And the one of us that goes first will be waiting and ready to greet the one that follows. And as Romans 8:18 says, what we suffer now is nothing compared to the glory he will give us later. My footnote and wish to this is, if I ever become incompetent or disabled by strokes, I do not want to be a burden to anyone. Same care, same place as your dad is good enough for me, and the same true love can be carried over there as mine has been for him. Softly and tenderly Jesus is calling, calling for you and for me. See on the portals he's waiting and watching, watching for you and for me. Come home, come home. You are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling for you and for me. Time is now fleeting, the moments are passing, passing from you and from me. Shadows are gathering, deathbeds are coming, coming for you and for me. Come home, come home. We who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling, oh sinner, come home. Oh, the wonderful love he has promised, promised for you and for me. Though we have sinned, he has mercy and pardon, pardon for you and for me. Come home, come home. We who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling, oh sinner, come home.